Hey there and welcome to the channel. You're watching The Light in My Library. Today we're going to be talking about Stormfront by Jim Butcher, the first book in the Dresden Files. So, full disclosure, I'm actually currently on book 6 of the Dresden Files. I read the first book about a year ago now, but I want to get this review out of the way because I am loving the Dresden Files and I would like to talk to people about it, and I can't really do that if I haven't reviewed the books. So, here we go. Also, I haven't written a script or prepared at all for this video. Kind of in a hurry today, so I'm hoping I can just sit down, bust it out, and move on. If I'm not remembering all the details of the novel, I apologize. Like I said, it has been a year. So, Dresden Files is about, and Stormfront specifically, is about the only privately practicing wizard in Chicago. Set in the year 2000, which is when the book was released. He kind of talks a little bit about the beginning, how there's like a new awakening, people are aware of magic again around the turn of the century, but not everyone, just there's some people waking up to it. The book opens, honestly, it's kind of a boring conversation, but it was enough that I picked it up in the bookstore. I read the first page, and then I ran to the front, and I bought the book, and I drove home as quickly as I could to read it, because there was just something compulsively readable about the book, and I ended up finishing it in one sitting, which is, not the first time I've ever done that, but definitely a compliment in favor of the book. It's kind of a fantasy detective noir crossover, a little bit of Harry Potter in there, a little bit of American Gods in there later in the series, in the sense that basically any religion, fable, fantasy thing is not off limits in the Dresden Files universe, and it will come up. I mean, there's I can't remember the name of it. Later in the book there are some later in the series there are some Christian relics that pop up, and yeah, it's really good. I would highly recommend it. So I'm gonna give, just getting straight into the review. This is gonna be a fast one. I would give Stormfront a 9 out of 10 for prose. It's not really super beautiful. It's not in your face either, though. What it is it's extremely readable, extremely easy to read, and it's easy to just breeze through the book. So I definitely enjoyed it. It's also a short book, which definitely is in its favor. Pacing and plot, I'm going to give a 10 out of 10, actually. It's just breakneck in this first book. It's iconic. Many people in the Dresden community absolutely consider Stormfront to be one of the best books in the series, and I can understand why they would think that. I definitely agree with them so far. We'll see. I haven't gotten to changes yet, so we'll see. And character-wise, I'm going to go ahead and give it, let's say, a 7 out of 10. Dresden is a good character. Susan and Murphy are also very good characters. I feel like there's definitely a distinction in this book. You can kind of tell the difference between the characters who are going to pop up again and the characters who are one-and-dones. And the quality of the writing between those two groups is definitely noticeable. Also, I think it is worth pointing out in this book, it is definitely noticeable that, after reading a few books, I should say, it's noticeable that Jim Butcher is definitely one of those, he's not the only one, and he's not the first one, but he's one of those fantasy writers who is using D&D as a basis for world building. Not that the lore or anything like that is in any way reflective of D&D, but the characters definitely have stats, and it's less noticeable in this book, but especially in later books. And then the loot system. I mean, again, I'm not an expert in D&D, so I maybe shouldn't say the loot system. However, it's very, I don't even know if I could explain it because I'm not super familiar with D&D. I'm just familiar enough to notice that there's definitely some influence going on here, in that Jim Butcher did write up a character sheet for Dresden. He did write up a character sheet for Susan and for the other characters. And it shows, not in a bad way, not even necessarily in a good way. It's just noticeable if you know that it's there, which he did do. And it's not a bad, it's not a negative, it's not anything. It's just a thing to point out about the book. So, overall, I'm going to give this book a 9 out of 10. I absolutely loved this book. I tore straight through it. Like, it was maybe a 6-hour read for me. And I loved every minute of it. And I was extremely excited right afterwards. I ended up finishing it in one day, going back to the bookstore to try to buy Full Moon. Unfortunately, it wasn't in stock at the bookstore. And so I ended up having to take a short break from the series. That's not important. The point is, this book is definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. It is right up there as definitely one of the best openers to a fantasy series of all time, and just the atmosphere and unique nature of this series, in addition to the almost thriller way in which this first book is written, are high selling points. I would 100% recommend this book to any lover of science fiction and fantasy out there. 9 out of 10 would read. So, thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you would like to, please consider giving this video a like, subscribing to the channel. I have a Twitch channel as well if you want to go ahead and check that out. I do kind of classic games over there: Roller Coaster Tycoon, Fable, The Lost Chapters, Battlefront, some other things. So please consider hopping over there, giving it a look. I really appreciate that. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and thank you for watching the video.